Hello. Welcome to another Hopeful Hauler Makes. Long time no see, y'all. Long time no see. Ooh, what's been going on? You know, from this angle, it looks like I have long, ginormous legs. Isn't it funny? It's all about the angles. So, I guess I'm just gonna, I was gonna sit here and spin some yarn, but instead, sunglasses, I'll hold the camera and chat with y'all for a second. Where to begin? Well, first of all, welcome to a Hopeful Hauler Makes Instagram / YouTube channel. Not a podcast. It is a podcast, a video cast. Welcome. So if you've been here before, you know I like to show a lot of what I've been making. I like to track my progress. I like to be able to go back in time and look at photos, and I can look at the projects and know pretty much exactly what was happening in my life when a certain project was made, what I was thinking, what I was overcoming in my life at that time. And so I just want to share that with y'all. Maybe there's somebody out there who has a stick growing out of their head. Not a stick, but a pole. I'm just gonna keep that going. Maybe that's my antenna to the aliens. Anyway, good grief. Okay, so on Instagram I said I was going to share a little bit more about my ketogenic therapy that I'm doing. And if anybody has read the book Brain Energy or looked into metabolic health recently, you'll see that there is a group of people on YouTube and Instagram and otherwise through Stanford and a lot of other places, Mayo Clinic, who are treating various epileptic as well as bipolar patients. And it's been going on for hundreds of years, specifically for epilepsy, but not so much for bipolar and schizophrenia and things like that. So, if you've gone back and watched some of my videos, maybe the one getting to know all about me, you'll have an idea of my story and my life experience as a child and then going through school. So since it's been so long, I'm going to give a little bit of a recap for those who may be new around here. When I was a little girl, I went through a lot, as many of us do, and developed certain habits of pulling my hair out, counting to a certain number, having to jump up on something or jump down from something a certain amount of times, or something bad was going to happen to me. And then as I got older, that particular thing went away, but then other things came into play. Body dysgraphia, then it wasn't called that. We didn't have these names for it. If it was probably in high psychology, not for the lay person, because again, keep in mind, we didn't have the internet. I just knew that every day I thought I looked kind of like a different person. That my body I was seeing something different than what other people were seeing. And so this progressed fast. I feel like I got a good handle on it, had some therapy around it, was in a recovery group for several years, and actually that recovery group started hurting more than it was helping, so I stopped that. And that was about the time that I started practicing yoga. And I practiced yoga several times a week for about 6 years, very consistently. Felt really well. Felt like I had a handle on things, living my life in an appropriate manner, the way I wanted to live my life, without a ton of mental struggle and force with that. And then along came menopause. So right now it is a very hot topic, and I'm very grateful that more people are talking about it, because my concern is for everybody, but specifically for the younger generation who hear so many different messages about nutrition and exercise. And then if for whatever reason they happen to have an eating disorder, the possible triggers around that could happen, and everything that's just wanting to take money instead of really help people. So I'm not selling anything. No one is sponsoring me. This is just my actual lived experience. So within this last year, and very personal information here, 1 year post menstrual cycle, I kept telling my husband things just don't feel right. And I kept thinking, well, it's menopause. That's what you hear, right? You might feel like you're going crazy. That's what I had heard for years. And then I went through a situation that was emotionally triggering, felt very unsafe, and it actually sent me into a psychosis. And I was calling the police on people that needed the police called on them, but also a loved one who was there to help me. And the EMT people recommended that I not actually say some of the things that I was saying, or they would take me to the hospital. And so I said, I want to understand how I got here. I want to understand why this is happening, because I knew cognitively that things were not right. I knew I wasn't being my normal self. I knew I was thinking things that were not my normal thinking pattern, and thinking bizarre, strange things. But I also knew that I didn't feel like I could stop it. All I could feel was I knew eventually it would stop, and I knew I needed help. So I was willing to go to the hospital. So during that time, I called a dear friend who I knew would actually pray for me rather than gossip about me. So that's kind of one of the keys I want to share here, is if you're feeling unsafe and you need help. I mean, people know this, but I think one of the things that keeps people from calling people when they do need help is the fear of judgment and the fear of being injured even further. And that was certainly a fear, but also I knew this person actually really cared and has had experience with this of some sort. So I called her, and she prayed for me and has continued to do so. That's really important. Not to gossip about people, but to really actually pray for them, because that might be the most important thing you do to help somebody who is asking for help. So my experience in the hospital was I needed to be tranquilized, and then within 48 hours I felt back to my normal self, and people were telling me that I was very different than when I first came in, and I don't remember a little bit of it. The main thing that I remember thinking in there was, I have a coloring book and I have crayons, and as long as I continue to color and stay focused internally and not externally, until I get out, then I will be okay. It was very surprising to me that, honestly, this would happen to me. Not because I felt like I was above it, but because I walk, I practice mindfulness, I spin and knit every single day, I spend a lot of time outside, I communicate with those I feel safe with on a regular basis. I am connected to my higher power, very much so. I mean, I would be surprised if I heard that somebody like that experienced what I experienced. However, a mix of hormone changes, let's just at the very least call it that, combined with, I know the word trauma is used a lot. This was a traumatic event, and grief over the loss of my Meemaw. I feel like, and have been told, that's a combination of a perfect storm. So where that brings me today is full of hope and progress, my own personal progress for the future, and hopefully just by sharing my story right now, I don't feel comfortable getting into comments. I will read the comments. If there are any, I will open up my comments. I've had them closed just because the energy that it would take to just get through the days doing the things that I'm purposed to do. I just didn't want to add another element on that. So that's just the way it's always been. So we'll see in the future. I may respond to the comments here, but I also may not, because I am typically a private open book. I am a turtle. I like to come out and play, and I also like to go in my shell and just retreat and have my own quiet time and have my privacy in certain things. And so with this, I feel like there is a certain point where I need to be honest and vulnerable and share my experience, because again, we are living in a time where the food is bizarre. When I was growing up, I don't mean to sound like back in my day, however, back in my day, going out for fast food was kind of a big deal, because it was considered expensive, and we had food at home. My mom cooked a lot, and we had fresh foods that were easy to cook. It wasn't until my teenage years where there was more frozen food and restaurant food and fast food, and that was because she was a single mom and just things were very different. So how does all of this affect the metabolism, and why does it even matter? One of the things that I think specifically matters is how much we understand and educate ourselves, and I'm in this boat as well, in educating myself about how the hormones affect our brains and how much exercise really does change the chemistry in our brains, and how even for me, with exercise and eating well and all those things, my brain chemistry was still off. And I'll be completely transparent. When I was in the hospital, they did diagnose me with several of the things. I'll just leave it at that right now, and did did put me on a medication. And along with my therapist and other loved ones, I've chosen not to be on the medication. I've chosen to have hormone replacement, exercise frequently throughout the week, make sure I eat well, make sure I stay out of high drama situations. I keep myself around loved ones who I feel safe with. And I'm very blessed and grateful to have loved ones and friends who all want those things for themselves as well. So that part isn't a challenge. So I just want to give some recommendations on some people on YouTube that I've been following that have helped me a lot in understanding some of these things. And that is Andrew Huberman. His podcast in several different ways, just speaking about biology and psychology and how we are in the world, has been very helpful. When we understand those things at a deep level, I feel like it puts it in the realm of it's not just me. I am a human, and this is how the human brain thrives, how the human brain works well. Excuse me. And that's what I've always wanted. When I grow a plant, I want to do the very best I can for that plant and help it to produce and live out its little experience to the best it can. And so that's what I want for me, and that's what I want for y'all. And so if anybody has experience with this and has found things that are helping them, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Like I said, what is helping me right now, I'm using a keto monitor, so it is tracking my glucose and my ketones. And my battery is out. I've got to get a new battery. But when I get my new battery, I'll do that in the next couple of days, and by next week I'll start showing some of my numbers. It's not good right now because I chose to have a lot of sugary, carby carbs, and I don't mean, tomatoes and potatoes and things like that. So being aware, I know what I'm doing, but seeing those numbers and being able to track my progress is very motivational for me to understand what I'm doing to myself or what I'm doing for myself. And that's always a big thing, to have a mirror right in front of my face to think, okay, what am I going to choose today? How am I going to love myself today? And I know when I was growing up, something like that, loving yourself or self-care or whatever, was talked about a lot as me. However, if you're also taught that you should be focusing on everyone else and taking care of everyone around you's needs, and then you realize that gets you into trouble physically, emotionally, and spiritually, then you have to choose to go against that. I have to choose to go against that. And so then that spurs a little bit of guilt until I remember what the first way of thinking got me. And it was not good. So, since my mom passed away in 2015, I have been very focused on my health, because what her death taught me is, and her aging and her life taught me, is that when she turned 50, I physically saw her go downhill, and emotionally, I just saw her struggle in a lot of ways harder than I had seen her struggle before. And then she almost died in a coma due to high blood sugar. And then she really started taking care of herself and started saying no to people and really started living her life for her health and her well-being. And I've said this on my Instagram, it was the most wonderful thing to see her for 3 years of her life really come alive. And so that inspires me to live my life in that way and to share this with other people. Just to have hope that there is another step. And I don't know what that step is for you. You may already be doing all these things. You may not know about any of the things that I'm discussing. You may be someone who's wanting to offer support to a friend or a loved one who's struggling, and maybe you don't understand what they're going through. Most of my life, I feel like I've been surrounded by people who at times didn't understand when I would try and share what I was going through honestly. And what I came to realize is it took me a long time to figure out who to share with. So you might be wondering, well, Michelle, here you are sharing on YouTube with everybody. But I feel safe. I feel safe in that, knowing I've had a lot of support. I've done a lot of work. This is not new to me. This is just another facet of this part of myself. And especially right now with the mental health crisis, and I do believe it is a crisis in America specifically, I feel like people should be speaking up as to what it is that is helping them, and that there is help, and that we do not have to be a victim to these things. And I think it's a multitude of things. So this is just the first video that I will share on a Hopeful Holler Makes that has to do with metabolism, growing gracefully older, and having hope. Because what is the point if we are just going to grow old and sour and not enjoy our loved ones or our own life and the beauty that's around us? So I hope this encourages someone. I have a few friends out there that I have talked to openly about this who also are looking for answers, and I just want to track my progress as I go, just like with my other projects. I have a sweet therapist who said, "Oh, so you're looking at this as though you're one of your projects?" And I said, "Yes, I am one of my projects." So what I will tell you I'm tracking my information with right now is called a mojo, and I use little test strips and I prick my finger, and I'll share more about that later. So I just kind of wanted to give folks an idea of where I'm going with this, invite you to join along. I'm thankful you're here. If you see something that encourages you or inspires you, I hope you'll continue to watch. So anyhow, a hopeful holler makes. Everything really is better with wool because it's so therapeutic, y'all. Have a blessed one. Bye.